Trump with his vaccine, he keeps bringing this up, which it seems so misguided, because this is the one thing his base, and when I say his base, I'm looking at you, Fredericksburg, Texas, his base hates this. They can't believe that he's still promoting the clot shot, the death vax, all these like seriously. This is there are people who say, because and I don't want to vote for him now because he tweeted that or truthed that or whatever. And again, he said the pandemic no longer controls our lives. The vaccines that saved us from COVID are now being used to help beat cancer, turning setback into comeback. You're welcome, Joe. 9-month approval time versus 12 years that it would have taken you. So, I'm like, okay, whatever. It is what it is. But
we have to stop.
Well, I'm going to explain it.
Oh, why he's doing this?
Yes, I'm going to explain.
Or why he's missing the messaging.
Why he's doing this. He is, I believe, now very sincere, but not for the reasons we think. And people have been sending me this video for the past 3 days. It's a Rumble video. There's 4 guys on the screen. One guy, the main guy talking, is wearing a black hat and sunglasses. You can imagine, and it's 2.5 hours long. You could imagine, I'm like, no, it's all right. I'm not going to watch that. And I keep getting this video. No, you got to watch it. This is really, So last night, I finally watch it. It's,
yay.
Sorry?
I said yay.
Yeah, yay. Well, the first...
Because I wasn't going to watch it.
Have you received this video from anybody?
I heard about it.
Yeah, was the vax for something else? And on this video is Dr. Scott Jensen, Dave Collum. I think Dave Collum is the guy in the black hat and the glasses, and John Collum, and then Tommy. It's his video channel, Tommy's channel. And the thesis that this guy, the guy in the hat and the glasses, comes up with is very interesting. And there's a couple of things that bothered us during COVID that are explained by this thesis. And the things that bothered us the most was Trump always talking about the 2017 pandemic, the 1917 pandemic. Do you remember that? Instead of saying 1918, he would say 1917.
Yes, I remember him having the date off.
Well, it wasn't just once that he said it. It was like 30 or 40 times, and this is a supercut that these guys brought to this show.
Read about 1917, but in 1917, certainly not since 1917. There's been nothing like this since 1917. Who would have thought? 1917, that was the Spanish flu. 1917, there's been nothing like this since probably 1917. Not since 1917 has there been anything like this. It's like nobody's seen since 1917. That's a long time ago. 1917, they went through something that was similar. 1917 was the last time. You go back over 100 years, 1917. You all know what happened in 1917. That's over 100 years ago. You look at 1917, the pandemic, it was something. The worst pandemic since 1917. 1917, that's something. It's 1917.
Okay, you get the idea. That just went on and on and on. So this was not a mistake. This was not Mr. President. It's 1918. He was sincere about it. By the way, it's John Cullen in the black hat and the glasses. I'm sorry. Thank you for correcting me, Troll Room. So the thesis. Now, what was the other thing that really irritated us? That flu went away entirely. There was no flu. Flu was gone.
Oh, in fact, there's a new WHO meme going around showing the number of flu cases for that year that we're irked about.
So and it was
zero.
And
basically, there was no flu.
Yeah, it wasn't just America; it was everywhere, globally. There was no flu; just flu disappeared. Well, the thesis, and I only have two more historical clips from our own show to play to kind of accentuate the thesis, and this may unfold over time. The thesis is that COVID was released to cover up avian flu, which had been bubbling under for several years. Department of Defense was all over it, and there was some doctor in Wisconsin who was doing gain of function. They have the documents that this guy actually was permitted to continue from Fauci, was doing gain of function on H7N9 avian flu. And that this is the one that got out of control. And so they immediately went to, and that's a flu, that's a type A influenza, bird flu, HN7A. And that this was bubbling under from 2013, 2014 until this gain of function all of a sudden comes out. It hits in a couple of places, New York being one of them, and they had to cover it up. So they covered it up by releasing the COVID gain of function, which is much less severe. And here's a clip that I just pulled from our own archives about there being something going on, multiple viruses in China before any of this COVID stuff happened.
Now, the virus appeared exactly at the peak of America's global confrontation with China. And the suspicion that, the two events connected is really a fairly obvious one. Furthermore, when you look at some of the details of what had been happening in China the previous 2 years, in 2018, there was a mysterious viral epidemic that had devastated China's poultry industry. In 2019, there was a mysterious viral epidemic that appeared in China and destroyed 40% of China's pig herds, its primary meat source. So we're talking about a virus appearing in 2018.
So now the thesis these guys have, or this guy has, shows a lot of evidence that there was a very bad avian flu. They were culling chickens like crazy, which started in China and then became a worldwide thing. You remember there was a lot of fires as well, a lot of chicken farm fires, and chicken seemed to be quite an expensive commodity. So that this thing hit, in order to cover it up, the influenza test, they took out the whatever you call it, the H7N9 portion of the test. They took that out of the influenza test. If you look at it, there's like all these different influenzas that you test for with this test. And they took that one out so that it wouldn't show. So what people really had, the people who were dying, was the H7N9. And Trump, even though there was only one dead person as of January 10th in China, one dead person, he signed the Moderna deal on January 13th. And so their thesis is that the early Moderna vaccine was actually an H7N9 vaccine for something called crimson contagion. That was the real the real virus, the real exercise they were going through with Department of Defense. That was the reason for Operation Warp Speed. And they had pictures of Kayleigh McEnany, getting off the helicopter, and in her hand she has documents about crimson contagion. None of it was COVID. And, so again, it was like something got out. It was the China virus. China was being devastated by this. And if you recall, even Pompeo said something weird that also irritated us.
This is not about retribution. This matters going forward. We're in a live exercise here to get this right. We need to make sure that...
And Trump in the background said they should have let us know. They should have let us know.
We're in a live exercise here to get this right. Do
you remember that?
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I think Trump is trying to communicate, and maybe these guys are a part of this theory or whatever that it's coming out now. He's trying to communicate that there was a very deadly virus. It did, and he never called it COVID. He always said, I call it the China virus. He never said COVID-19. He was always talking about the China virus. And it was only the Moderna vaccine. So who knows? But I thought it was really interesting. And the videos in the show notes, the first half hour, really, they lay out their case. None of it clip worthy, unfortunately. But there's a lot of, the guy has a lot of documents to show on screen. And I think it's a possibility. It's
okay. Well, if you're going to, I like to see more documentation. But going with it, it's possible that some of those documents that he's kept at Mar-a-Lago
and contain that. There you go.
It has the whole information. When he gets back into office, he'll roll it all out.
Whoa. Hadn't even considered that one. I like it. So, look at the first 30 minutes of that video, and they have the documentation to back up the thesis. I don't know if they're fitting this thesis into it, but it was definitely an eye-opener for me. I'm like, okay, all right, I see what you're trying to do here. See what you're trying to say. And it makes no sense otherwise. Trump is not an idiot. He knows his people.
This is true. That's the kind of the what is he up to moment in this bragging about the mRNA vaccine.
Well, he's not bragging. In fact, he has slammed Pfizer in the past. Oh, that was just a money-making exercise. But Operation Warp Speed was something that was underway before. I mean, we didn't have the real lockdown until mid-March. That's when, I was at Joe Rogan at the beginning of March when we had, what's his face, the Dr. Death out there saying, we're going to have 3 million people dead. So this was early.
That's right. That was when you first ran into that guy.
Yeah. What's his name? Osterhoff.
Who got sick as a dog, almost died himself.
And Trump had already signed the Moderna. There was only one person dead in January, the beginning of January, in China. And he signed Operation Warp Speed on January 13th. There's a lot of, and then flu going away, covering it up by removing HN79 from the flu test. Anyway, and so back to 2017 is very hard to find, but there's enough evidence that 2017 was an actual avian flu that was the setup to the 1918. So that's why he keeps saying 1917. Now, why he doesn't...
Wow.
Yeah. Now, why he doesn't just come out and say
Talk about getting into the weeds.
Yeah, but he kept saying
Second half of show.
Well, we do second half of show.
Borderline theorem in there.
But I do want to stick with Big Pharma for a moment because we have some interesting news regarding the GLP-1 weight loss drugs, and I have a clip from Bobby the Op because he's saying something smart. But first... let's look at the market and look at the latest entrants into the weight loss medications.
From Oprah